at his own engagement party. My son stood there holding a fancy glass of whiskey, under those white string lights we'd hung up together just days before. He raised his glass, looked around at everyone, and said with a grin, "Just so you all know, if my mom starts acting strange tonight, don't worry, she's kind of losing her mind." People burst out laughing. One woman even clapped. I was only a few steps away, holding a lemon tart I'd baked from scratch, the crust still warm in my hands. My face felt hot, but I didn't say a word. I didn't drop the tray. I just turned around and walked into the kitchen, staring at the sink like it might tell me what to do. In that moment, it hit me like a punch. My own son didn't see me as his mom anymore. He saw me as a problem he needed to get rid of. There had been little warning signs before. He started helping me with my money, taking over my bank account. He insisted on booking all my doctor appointments. Friends stopped calling, and I wondered if maybe I was imagining things. But standing there in that kitchen, I knew I wasn't. At night, I stayed in my bedroom while the music played and everyone danced and drank in the living room. No one came to see if I was okay. Around midnight, I heard the front door close as the last guest left. I got out of bed, picked up a yellow notepad, and wrote just one sentence. May 3rd, he told everyone I had dementia. The next morning, I tried to log in to my bank account. Locked out. I tried my backup password, nothing. I texted Travis to ask if something had changed. No reply. When I checked again later, there was a message. Access temporarily suspended by primary account holder, and the primary wasn't MIT, was him. That was the day I decided to start writing everything down. I kept that notebook with me at all times. I wrote down every odd look, every rude comment, every moment someone repeated themselves to me like I was a little kid. I stopped trusting my own reflection in the mirror. I stopped answering calls from numbers I didn't recognize. To prove to myself I was still sharp, I read books out loud, did word puzzles, and memorized numbers backward. I knew I wasn't losing my mind. But Travis was working hard to make everyone think I was. And I knew what came next if I didn't fight back. Some glossy brochure for an old folks' home, my driver's license taken away, and quiet talks behind my back about where to send me. I wouldn't let that happen. Not to the woman who raised 2 kids alone on a teacher's paycheck and never once missed the mortgage. Not to the woman who took care of her husband at home so he could die in his own bed. Not to the woman who still woke up every day at 6:30, just out of habit. I didn't know exactly what my plan would be, but I did know one thing for sure. Travis had just started a fight, and he had no idea who he was messing with. The first real blow didn't come from him, though it came from the house itself. Little things started to go missing. My keys weren't where I left them. My glasses turned up in the freezer. My favorite coffee cup somehow ended up in the bathroom cabinet. At first, I blamed myself. Maybe I was tired. Maybe I was distracted. But then it kept happening, over and over, at just the right times to make me doubt myself. I'd write a list, and then it would disappear. I'd sort my pills for the week, and 2 days' worth would suddenly be gone, even though I hadn't taken them. And then came the phone call. A nurse from a clinic I'd never even heard of called to confirm my appointment for memory testing, and that was when I knew I had to fight for myself before they took everything away. I told the nurse on the phone that she must have the wrong number, but she calmly read out my full name, my address, and my date of birth. My heart started beating faster. I hadn't made any appointment. After I hung up, my hand was shaking so badly I almost dropped my phone. I checked the calendar app, the one Travis set up for me, and sure enough, there was an appointment next Thursday at 11:30 a.m. It just said memory. That night, I sat on the edge of my bed, staring down at my shoes for 20 minutes straight. I didn't cry. I didn't move. I just kept trying to remember if I'd actually booked the appointment and somehow forgotten, or if something else was going on. When I finally stood up, I felt this cold wave rush through my chest, like a warning telling me, pay attention. I opened the medicine cabinet and pulled out all my pill bottles. At first, they looked normal. But then I noticed my anxiety pills were a different color than usual. The label said the same name, but the number didn't match the last refill. I knew I hadn't switched anything. Travis had picked them up as a favor. I didn't sleep that night. I sat up, cross-checking every label, searching online for side effects, writing everything down in my yellow notebook. In the morning, I called the pharmacy and asked who picked up my prescription. The woman's voice on the other end went quiet. She finally said it was picked up by a male family member on file authorized. But I'd never given anyone that permission, not in writing, not over the phone. Then the worst feeling hit me, not a discovery, but pure doubt. I sat in the kitchen, staring at my hands, and whispered to myself, what if he's right? What if I really am starting to forget things? That fear was worse than any trick, because the second you start questioning your own memory, it's like a tiny crack forms, and everything you believe about yourself starts to shake. That's exactly what they hoped for, that crack to grow. I stood up fast and marched into the laundry room. I yanked open every drawer and cabinet, desperate to find something that didn't belong, and then I saw it. Above the dryer, behind a roll of paper towels, was a small black gadget with a tiny red light blinking every few seconds. A hidden camera. It looked like an air freshener, but it wasn't. I didn't scream. I didn't pull it down. I leaned in close, let the little lens see my face, and said out loud, "Gotcha." Then I walked out, picked up my notebook, and wrote, May 4th, hidden camera, found in my house. No more doubt. This is real. That was the moment I stopped wondering and started getting ready. Travis had made his move, and now it was my turn. That Saturday, Eli came over like he always did. He's 15, always glued to a screen, and carries this smug little grin. I tried to act normal. I made pancakes, just like when he was little. I asked him to pass me the salt, but by accident, I said sugar. Just a slip, nothing big. He laughed, pulled out his phone, and said, "Say that again, Grandma." I thought he'd just missed what I said or wanted to help, so I repeated it. 3 hours after he left, I got a call from a woman at church asking if I was okay. I asked her why, and she said, "We saw the video." My stomach dropped. I don't do videos. I don't post anything online. I didn't even know what she meant. I hung up, opened Facebook, which I barely touched, and there it was. Someone had shared a clip from Eli's Instagram story. The video showed me messing up one word, repeating myself for a second. They'd added music and captions to make it look like I was rambling nonsense for hours. The caption read, "When grandma.exe starts glitching." It already had over 400 likes, 200 shares, and dozens of comments saying things like, "She needs help, and this is so sad." The worst part wasn't the video itself. It was knowing Travis had probably let Eli do it. Maybe he'd even told him to. Eli was too young to understand how damaging this was. But Travis wasn't. I sat on the kitchen floor, staring at my phone until my legs went numb, thinking, this is how it starts. One little video, one joke, one lie at a time until everyone thinks you're too far gone to stand up for yourself. That night, I promised myself they would never see me break again. The next morning, I got up, showered, got dressed, and drove to Walgreens, not because I needed anything important, just to feel normal. I wandered the aisles, bought a bag of mints and a new pair of reading glasses. But when I walked back out, into the parking lot, my car wasn't there. Not where I'd parked, not in the next row, not anywhere I looked. And for 5 full minutes, I just stood there, feeling my heart pound and thinking, this is exactly what they want. I stood there, in the parking lot, hugging my purse tight against my chest, thinking, maybe I forgot where I parked. Maybe I really am slipping. Maybe they're all right about me. My throat felt tight, and my ears were ringing. Asterisk. I was about 5 seconds away from crying in front of strangers when I heard a clicking sound behind me. I turned and saw Travis stepping out from behind another car, holding up my keys. He had this smirk on his face, like he'd just caught me doing something wrong. He said, "You wandered off, so I figured I'd move the car closer for you." I nodded like it made sense, but inside, something broke. Because he hadn't moved the car to be helpful. He moved it so I'd question myself, so I'd get scared and feel like I couldn't trust my own memory. When I got home, I wrote everything down in my yellow notebook. May 7th, video posted online without my OK, car moved without telling me, public humiliation. That was when it finally hit me. I couldn't wait around for help. I couldn't rely only on my gut anymore. I had to start controlling how everyone saw me instead of just reacting to the things Travis did. So I decided to do something he wouldn't expect. I started acting like I was confused on purpose. Not because I was giving up, but because I knew it was the only way to beat him, let him think he was winning. I began leaning into the story he was spreading. I asked where things were even when I knew exactly where I'd left them. I called my daughter, Kennedy, twice in one day and pretended I'd forgotten the first call. At the store, I let my PIN slip out loud and smiled politely when the cashier looked at me with pity. And the more I played along, the more careless Travis became. He started talking around me like I wasn't even there, saying things he thought I was too far gone to understand. I wrote down every word, every lie, every little slip-up. It wasn't hard. I'd been a teacher for 30 years. I'd caught cheetahs smarter than Travis plenty of times. I took my old iPad and taped it inside the laundry vent, so it would record whenever someone came into the house. A few days later, I finally got proof. The recording showed Travis pacing in front of the dryer, talking on the phone, saying, "She signs anything now. Just needs a little push. I'll get her to do the deed change next week. She won't remember it 5 minutes later." When I listened to that, I didn't feel shocked or even angry. I felt something cold and clear. I'd known he was trying to do this all along, just hadn't caught him saying it out loud. Now I had proof. I saved the recording twice, once to the cloud, once to a flash drive that I taped behind the bathroom mirror. And for the first time in weeks, I smiled. Not because I was happy, but because the game had changed. I wasn't the prey anymore. I was setting the trap. I kept pretending. I lost things on purpose. I called Travis by my late husband's name, just to make him feel sure he was in control. The more I played, confused, the more he treated me like I was already gone. And that was when I noticed something even worse than the lies. He liked it. He liked the power. He liked explaining simple things to me in that slow, sugary voice, like I was a little kid. Even Eli started copying him, calling me glitch grandma under his breath when he thought I couldn't hear. Every time I wanted to scream or throw something, I wrote instead, page after page, what they said, how it felt, how disgusted and small and angry I was. And with every note, my plan got clearer. I wasn't just going to protect myself. I was going to destroy every lie Travis had told. But I knew I couldn't do it alone. Not yet. I needed help from someone who still saw me as the woman I used to be. Someone who wouldn't think I was crazy. So the next morning, I drove to the American Legion Hall, the place where my husband used to volunteer every second Saturday, folding flags and fixing the old coffee machine. I hadn't stepped inside since his funeral, but I knew I'd find someone there who would remember me. The smell of burnt coffee and dusty carpet hit me the moment I walked in. It was like stepping into a time machine. And there he was, Carl, sitting at the same corner table where he and my husband used to play chess. Same gray beard, same denim vest. When he saw me, he stood up slowly, like he wasn't sure I was real, and said, "Shannon, Jesus, you disappeared." I walked over, sat down across from him, and didn't bother with small talk. I told him everything from that awful party to the locked bank account, the video, the pills, and Travis moving my car. Carl didn't laugh or tell me I was imagining things. He just looked at me, serious as ever, and nodded once. Then he said, "I knew something was wrong the moment he said, I figured something was off when your boy came by." That made my heart stop for a second. I asked him what he meant, and he told me, "Travis showed up here about 2 months ago. He was asking questions about your husband's will. Said he needed to check on some military benefits. He claimed it was for updating some trust papers or something." Then Carl leaned forward, pulled a wrinkled napkin out of his vest pocket, and handed it to me. There was a name written on it, Scott Delaney, an estate lawyer from McKinney. I didn't know who that was. Carl shook his head and said, "Your boy was sloppy, real sure of himself. Thought I was too drunk to notice anything, but I wrote it down after he left, just in case." I stared at that napkin like it was the last piece of a giant puzzle I'd been trying to finish for months. And suddenly, everything made sense. Travis wasn't just messing with my head for the fun of it. He was getting ready. He was changing paperwork behind my back. He was setting traps before I even knew there was a fight. My stomach felt cold, but it wasn't fear this time, it was focus. Finally, I had something real to hold on to. A person to track, a trail leading straight to the knife he was aiming at my back. I thanked Carl and told him I owed him dinner. I left before the tears could spill over. When I got home, I picked up the phone and called the number on that napkin. But I didn't use my real name. I pretended to be my own assistant. I said I was just checking on an appointment for Miss Whitaker's estate planning. The woman on the line said, "Yes, we have you down for next Wednesday." Just reviewing the deed transfer forms. For a moment, I couldn't speak. Then I said, Perfect. Thank you, and hung up. I stood there in my kitchen with the phone in my hand, feeling like the world had tipped sideways. That was the moment I knew the last piece of Travis's plan was almost in place, the document he needed. The proof he was going to sign my name to. I opened my notebook and wrote it all down. May 9th. Travis started legal paperwork under false pretenses. Lawyer confirmed appointment. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't making this up. He was trying to erase me on paper before he ever tried to put me in a home. And now I had proof. 2 days later, Kennedy showed up without calling first. She was standing in my doorway, holding a big manila envelope like it weighed 1,000 pounds. Before I could ask what she was doing there, she said softly, "We just want what's best for you, Mom." And my heart sank because I already knew. I could feel it in my chest before she even opened her mouth again. I moved aside and let her in without a word. She sat down at the kitchen table we'd shared for 30 years, the same table where I'd helped her with homework and where she once told me she was having Eli. She looked at me like I was a frail old woman, like I was already half gone. Then she pushed the envelope across the table and said, "It's just temporary guardianship, Mom, just until we figure everything out." For a second, I saw myself the way she did, tired, older, alone, maybe even paranoid, and I almost believed it. I almost let that fog swallow me again. But then I remembered the little voice recorder in my pocket, the file I'd saved for this exact moment. I took out my phone, pressed play, and set it on the table like a weapon. The second Travis's voice came out of that tiny speaker, her face changed. He said, clear as day, "Just get her to sign, Kennedy. She trusts you more than me. Don't ask questions. Just get her signature." And then he laughed. That sound hit me like a hammer. Kennedy's hands started shaking. She whispered, "What is this?" I looked her in the eye and said, "It's your brother turning you into his puppet." She tried to talk, but nothing came out except a shaky breath, a whisper of guilt and disbelief. She reached for the envelope again, but I put my hand on it and said, "No, leave it here." She looked up at me with tears falling down her cheeks. "I didn't know," she said. "I swear to God, Mom, he told me you'd wandered out into the street last week, that you forgot your own name." I nodded slowly. Of course he did, because it's easier to pretend I'm losing my mind than to admit he wants my house, my money, and my name on a death certificate instead of a deed. She didn't say anything. She just shook her head and whispered, "What do we do?" I looked at her and said, "You stop listening to him, and you start remembering who raised you." That night, after she left, I opened my notebook again and wrote, May 11th. Kennedy brought the legal papers. Travis's plan exposed. Evidence played. Doubt planted. Loyalty shifting. And for the first time in weeks, I felt something new growing underneath all the fear. Not hope, not yet. But maybe, just maybe, the feeling that I wasn't alone anymore. The day I left wasn't dramatic at all. There was no big fight or late-night escape with a suitcase banging down the steps. I just got up early, before the sun had even touched the porch, and quietly slipped out the door. I packed a small duffel bag with 3 days of clothes, my notebook, both flash drives, and the iPad that held all the recordings. Then I drove 2 hours north to Carl's trailer, using an old paper map I hadn't looked at in 20 years. No GPS, no credit cards, no text messages. I wanted them to worry. I wanted them to feel what it was like when they couldn't control me anymore, especially Travis. He had built his whole little kingdom on the idea that I would just stay put and take whatever he threw at me. But when I left, I set something in motion he hadn't planned for. At exactly 7 a.m., an email I had prepared ahead of time landed in every inbox I had ever trusted: my church group, my pharmacist, the neighborhood association, old coworkers, even 3 of Travis's clients I found on LinkedIn. The email was called "In Case I'm Not Safe." Inside was a tidy folder full of proof: audio recordings of Travis plotting, screenshots of fake calendars, transcripts of phony prescriptions, video stills from a little camera I'd hidden in the laundry room. And the best part, a clear voicemail where he laughed and said, "She won't even remember signing it. I'll sell the house before she figures it out." Within a few hours, the phone I'd left behind on purpose was blowing up. Voicemails, texts, emails, even Facebook posts asking if I was okay. But the real moment that felt like winning came at 3:17 p.m., when Carl got a call from Kennedy. Her voice was shaking. She said people had been messaging her all day, forwarding the email. asking if it was true if Travis really did all those things. Carl told me she didn't even ask where I was. She only wanted to know if I was safe. And then something happened I didn't expect. Travis's fiancée Alyssa deleted every photo of them together off her social media, even their engagement picture, and then she blocked him. She completely erased him from her life online. That meant she'd seen everything too. She knew what kind of man she was about to marry. Just like that, his personal life started to fall apart. I stayed gone for 3 whole days, hiding out in Carl's spare trailer. There was no heat, and the power barely worked. I sat there by candlelight, writing everything down and reading all the messages Carl forwarded to me. Messages that said things like, "I'm sorry I didn't believe you," or "I never liked how he talked to you." One simply asked, "Do you need a place to stay?" I didn't reply to any of them, not because I didn't care, but because this wasn't over. This was just the earthquake before the landslide. When I finally came back, I wasn't returning as some poor victim or a ghost people whispered about. I was coming back as the woman who took every lie and turned it into a plan. And when I did, I brought all the truth with me, printed, stapled, and ready for court. I walked into that courthouse like I was walking into church after the end of the world come clean, and not scared of a single person in that building. I wore my late husband's navy blue blazer, the one I'd saved in the back of the closet, for funerals and real battles. As I stepped through security with a thick manila folder under my arm, I didn't even flinch when I saw Travis sitting there, pretending to look at his phone like he hadn't noticed me. For the first time since this whole war began, I didn't feel afraid or angry, just clear, because this wasn't about feelings anymore, it was about facts. And I had all of them organized, stamped, signed, and double-checked. When the clerk called my name, I stood up straight and walked into that courtroom. I greeted the judge like a woman who still remembered what it felt like to be respected. Travis sat across from me with his lawyer, whispering in a panic and already sweating through his shirt collar. The judge asked if I had an attorney, and I said, "No, Your Honor, just the truth." Then I slid the folder across the table and waited. What happened next was 23 minutes of quiet reading, audio files playing out loud, and Travis shifting in his chair while his own voice filled the room, saying things like, "She signs anything now, and once I have power of attorney, we sell the house before she knows." Then came the medical records, the pharmacy logs, the emails with fake dates, the appointment confirmations, everything in black and white. And that was the day the story finally started to change. I never said a word while the judge read through the papers. He didn't even blink until he got to the part where Travis had set up cameras in my house without my permission. Then he looked up and asked, "Who installed the cameras?" Travis's lawyer tried to object, but the judge held up his hand and said, "You can speak after I'm done reading this." I sat there completely still. Every second the judge spent reading felt like a little victory. Every pause was another crack in the big lie they'd built around me. Finally, the judge leaned back in his chair and looked me right in the eye. "Mrs. Whitaker," he said, "based on this evidence, I am ending all powers of attorney that were given to the defendant. I'm starting an emergency investigation into medical manipulation and financial abuse, and I'm recommending the district attorney look at this for possible criminal charges." I didn't react. I didn't smile or cry. I didn't move at all. I wanted Travis to see this wasn't happiness. It was justice. When we left the courtroom, he tried to look at me, maybe even tried to say something, but I walked right past him like he was just another stranger sitting on a bench. Outside, I didn't cry. I just stood there in the sun, letting the warmth hit my face. It felt like proof that I was still here. I still had my name, my rights, and my mind. I took out my notebook and wrote my only note for the day. May 5th, returned. Truth confirmed. War not over, but I'm not losing. The fallout came faster than I expected. It was like watching a dam break after weeks of pressure. 2 days after the hearing, Kennedy called me. Her voice was shaking. She told me Travis hadn't been fired exactly, but the company had mutually agreed to separate after someone I could guess who sent the court documents to his bosses. The next day, I got an email from my bank saying my access was fully restored and that Travis's authorization had been removed forever. I didn't reply. I just printed out the email and taped it inside the front cover of my notebook like a badge of honor. Within a week, the rest of his life started to crumble. His fiancée deleted her entire Instagram account. When she came back online, there wasn't a single photo of him left. No engagement pictures, no wedding plans, just a picture of her dog with the caption, "Peace is worth starting over." Kennedy told me she had called her brother one time, after the hearing, just once. She asked if it was true, if he'd really done all those things. He told her I had faked everything, that I'd tricked the judge. I asked Kennedy what she said back. She paused and then told me. I told him I saw the recordings myself, and I believe you now. He called her crazy, said she was just like me, so she hung up on him. I didn't say anything when she told me that. I just listened, because really, what could I say? He'd picked this fight. He lost. And now the silence between us was louder than anything he could have screamed. Then came the message I knew would show up eventually, not from Travis, but from Eli. It was a short email, sent late at night. All it said was, "I'm sorry." Attached was a picture he'd drawn of the two of us baking together, me holding a mixing spoon and smiling. In the corner, he had written, "You're not glitch, Grandma." I stared at that drawing for a long time, longer than I should have, because that was what hurt the most. Not the money, not the lies, but the way Travis had turned his own son against me, like my life was just a joke, like I was some silly story to laugh at. I didn't write back, not because I was mad, but because I didn't know how to say, "I forgive you, but I won't forget." A week after court, I got the last piece of the puzzle. An email from Travis. The subject line just said, "Closure." Inside was only one sentence. "You really want to go down like this?" I didn't open it again. I didn't forward it. I didn't reply. I just flagged it as spam and archived it for good, because the truth was, I didn't want closure. I wanted peace. And peace meant keeping him out of my house, my inbox, and my life forever. That night, I went out to the backyard and lit a small fire in the little patio fire pit my husband had built. I took the guardianship form Kennedy had brought me, the one I'd been carrying in my wallet for weeks, and dropped it into the flames. I watched it curl and burn until it was nothing but black ashes. As it burned, I wrote my final note for that chapter. May 21st, he lost everything except the one thing I never wanted, his regret. 2 months after the night Travis tried to erase me with a smile and a glass of whiskey, I threw a party. This time, it was in my backyard, with my guest list, my music playing low on the old speakers we'd used when the kids were little. I made the lemon tart myself, using the same recipe, the same glass dish, but this time, my hands didn't shake when I set it down. Only the people who had stood by me were there: Kennedy, Carl, Mrs. Dunley, from church, and my old co-worker, Janice, who'd written to me after everything came out to say she was sorry she hadn't believed me sooner. I always knew he gave me a bad feeling, someone said that evening. Even Eli came by, quiet but there, holding a grocery bag full of fresh strawberries. He asked if he could help set the table. I told him yes right away. I didn't feel any anger toward him anymore, just memories, heavy ones, but nothing I needed to pass on to anyone else. We all sat outside under the soft string lights, laughing like nothing had been taken from us, because in the end, nothing really had. I got it all back: my rights, my voice, my name. When the sun started to set and the sky turned that soft orange I've always loved, I stood up and lifted my glass. I looked around at everyone and said, "If anyone ever tries to take your voice, your name, or your mind, don't waste your breath shouting. Don't beg them to believe you. Just wait, watch, and make sure that when you fight back, you do it so clearly and so calmly that they can never stand up again." No one clapped. Instead, there was this quiet moment where everything felt still, like everyone really understood exactly what I meant. I looked over at Kennedy and saw her wiping her eyes. I watched Eli picking at a napkin, nodding like he had just learned something he would remember for the rest of his life. Then, I sat back down, took a bite of lemon tart, and tasted everything I thought I'd lost: the dignity, the strength, and the simple right to be heard without being doubted. And in that moment, I didn't think about Travis at all. Not once, because the best kind of revenge isn't yelling or seeing someone locked up. It's cutting them out of your life so completely that they disappear from every version of your future. I didn't need another court date or one last argument. I had already won. And I didn't just win, I survived. I walked back into my home, sat at the same kitchen table he tried to take from me, and proved that not only am I still here, I'm stronger than ever, and no one will ever question that again.